least being capable of sitting together and speaking together on personal level and on equal standards is something by itself. Up to now, my impression is that the Israelis, the average Israeli, is not willing to sit and dialogue with the Palestinian. He's afraid of changing his stereotype about the Palestinian because it will be more difficult for him to oppress him if he will meet him and know that all the stereotypes he have arranged in his mind about the Palestinian being a terrorist, a gangster, etc., and not being a human being. He doesn't want to know that the Palestinian is living in a home with a family and a wife and practicing a human life and building civilization. No, he wants to avoid this picture about the Palestinian, and he all the time wants to create in his mind a single picture, a terrorist attacking somebody or children or child killer or whatsoever. And this is not true, because when we want to speak about the crimes done against each other from both sides, it's a long list of things, and both sides have done a lot of terrible things to each other.
Maybe then we could ask you, what do you think is the effect of the Intifada on the economy of Israel? And will this be a critical aspect of the success of the Intifada, its economic impact on Israel?
Well, I think the economical factor is a major factor in the struggle. As an observer, I could tell that Israel wouldn't be capable of running away from the economic effect of the Intifada. Now, a real part of the Israeli economy is built on the cheap labor fleeing all over to Israel every day. It sums up to 100,000 cheap labor workers going to Israel every day. And from that, we could see that even the class structure in Israel after the occupation have changed due to this fleet of cheap labor, because Israelis there who used to do menial jobs have started to be bosses and benefiting out of the cheap labor going on. And with the Intifada, and especially when you see the idea of strike days, you could say that what the Palestinians in the occupied territories are trying to tell the Israelis, that you could still get cheap labor, but under our control, not under your control. And therefore, it's an unstable fleet of the cheap labor into Israel, which have started to create, as I think, economical crisis in Israel. A lot of people are not capable of fulfilling their obligations toward either exporting goods or fulfilling the need of the markets inside or outside Israel. And this factor is being played by the Intifada and by the people here in order to affect the Israeli economy, not on the side of destroying the Israeli economy, but on the side of trying to convince that the Israelis that you are not going to make benefit out of the occupation. Now, the other aspect is the aspect of the boycotting of the Israeli goods fleeing into the occupied territories. The occupied territories have been a very good captive market to the Israeli goods. Up to $1 billion a year of goods were fleeing from Israel into the occupied territories. And now this number is reducing because people in the occupied territories are boycotting the Israeli goods. They are consuming only the very basic needed goods, and anything you can live without or have an alternative to, people are not willing to buy it anymore. And that's why the status of the occupied territories as a captive market for Israel is being now reduced. And And this also have an impact on the Israeli economy. And this is another message to the Israelis, telling them that there is no way that you can benefit out of the occupation. So in terms of economy, that's what are the people is doing now. Many of the people in the occupied territory are also refusing to pay taxes under the title of no taxation without representation. So people are not willing to pay taxes except to their elected government. And yet they don't have their elected government, and they don't see any services given to them by the occupying authorities except new kinds of weapons, rubber bullets, plastic bullets, tear gases, and new camps being opened for arresting people. So for these sort of services, I don't think people are convinced of paying taxes to cover these activities. So in terms of economy, this is the struggle that I see as an observer in the occupied territories. And I see it's pretty effective on both sides. And it will be one of the factors that will determine the future of the Intifada and the future of the relation between the two nations, the Palestinians and the Israelis.
Comment about the significance of the dialogue between the PLO and the United States, and does this does the elections proposal and diplomatic activity surrounding it mean a turning point in the strategy of the Intifada? What will happen from here, and what are the main, the critical questions facing the leadership of the Intifada?
Well, also as an observer here, I would say that the Palestinian-American dialogue is a natural effect of the Intifada. The Intifada has given the Palestinian people the chance to be recognized as Palestinians. Now, the states haven't reached the stage in which they are willing to accept the right of self-determination for the Palestinians, but yet we see that the Palestinian-American dialogue is a good sign forward, and we accept that as a result of the activities of the Intifada and the change in the international world concerning the Palestinian-Israeli struggle. This is the first point. Now, about the significance of it, well, we will welcome every diplomatic effort in order to help for a peaceful solution for the Palestinian-Israeli struggle. But yet, we wish for the states not to bargain with the PLO alone, because actually there is another part in the bargaining here. And yet we haven't seen the American government bargaining with the Israelis, and we are seeing them up till now accepting the Israeli terms and trying to get other ideas from the PLO. I would tell you that the PLO have given a lot, and actually at this stage the PLO has fulfilled the requirements to go to peace, from including the recognition of Israel and the PNC resolutions and the declarations of Arafat in Geneva and elsewhere. And I think the Palestinian-American dialogue is not enough, and it should be it should continue and upgraded, and I hope to see the American government making a change of its policies towards more non-allied point of view, rather than being identified as a friend of Israel, and they are dialoguing with the PLO because of the election proposal. I wish to see the Americans dialoguing with the PLO for the necessity of dialoguing with the representatives of the Palestinian people. Now, in terms of the elections plan, I'm sorry to say that I can see everything in Shamir's proposal except elections. I'm not convinced that Shamir is willing to do elections. And this could be deducted from what Shamir is saying or stating every day about his proposal. First of all, Shamir is saying that there should be a commitment by the Palestinians to all the parts of his proposal before the elections. And if I'm going to analyze this statement, I would say two things. Either is Shamir hinting towards the approval of the PLO of his proposal, or is he claiming that there should be somebody from inside the occupied territories to commit himself and the Palestinians to Shamir's proposal? Now, if he's speaking about the approval of the PLO, it's easy for him. He can go and negotiate with the PLO and see their positions. If he's hinting about people from the occupied territories to commit the Palestinians to such a proposal, then why the elections? Because if you can trust a bunch of people whom Shamir will choose to be people who can commit all the Palestinian nation with his proposal, then they are trustful enough and there is no need for elections. And I see this as a tricky maneuver. And I think for his proposal, Shamir should work hard in order to convince the Palestinians that his proposal is not a trick. He should convince them because the Palestinians doesn't trust the Israeli government. People here have been living under occupation. When Shamir speaks about autonomy, people all the time are reminded with the idea of building up what he calls the civil administration. What's the civil administration? He added to the military governor office a civil administration office in which, the education system has an officer who organizes its work. Now the employees are Palestinians. The health office has also an officer, an Israeli officer on top of it, and the employees are Palestinians. If Shamir is offering us only to change this officer with an Arab man and then he wants to sell us this autonomy, I'll tell you since now that no Palestinian will accept such a thing because the Intifada has erupted mainly because of this attitude. Now, in the ends of the 70s, when they initiated the civil administration, they have seriously changed the status of the occupied territories from an occupied territory to an administrative territory. And this meant that they are not dealing with it as an occupied territory. It is now a liberated territory. It's part of Israel, but yet the international complications are not allowing them to complete the job. And yet, because they are afraid of the demographic problem, they are not ready to complete the job. Now let me ask them one question. If they can solve these two problems, aren't they going to annex the occupied territories from tomorrow? This is the main concern of the Palestinians. That's why they don't trust Shamir's plan. When Shamir's plan doesn't include either stopping the settlements or removing them, when it doesn't include any idea about the self-determination of the Palestinians, when it doesn't include any idea about being ready to withdraw from any inch of land, as he said, then how would it be attractive for the Palestinians? How would any Palestinian accept that? So actually, I'm not sure that Shamir is going for elections. I think the security side effects of the elections is a very big risk that Shamir is not willing to handle, and I think he's playing with this attractive term, which is election, because it includes inside it some sort of democracy, in order to release the tension from him and get Israel out of the international isolation it is living under now. And I think he should prove that he is sincere about starting a peace process in the area before speaking about such proposals. And proving that doesn't mean proving it in terms of talking. Even when you look at Shamir now, he doesn't talk peace. All the time he speaks about no 1 inch, he speaks about quelling the Intifada, speaking about the Palestinians as residents, not citizens, and about the PLO as a terrorist group, not representatives of a Palestinian nation. And therefore, in all these terms, and yet 2 days ago, I heard Ahrens repeating what Sharon says on the radio, repeating the idea of that Jordan is the homeland of the Palestinians, and a solution might include that, means that the Palestinians are not convinced that they are really sincere about starting a peace initiative now, and therefore you can't ask the Palestinians to trust the word of such a people in order to start an endless process. Now, an endless process for a Palestinian might include very dangerous aspects. We heard it not from the mouths of Shamir and Sharon, but also from the mouths of Beres and Rabin, that our major problem is the demographic problem. And whenever we can have another more 5 million immigrants or 4 million immigrants or 3 million immigrants, we will annex the occupied territories immediately. Now, how would you ask the Palestinians to trust them? And let's assume that in the near future they manage to attract more Jewish immigrants to Palestine. What will be the future of the Palestinians here? Are they going to be annexed immediately and then dealt with as a demographic problem, or as residents who have no rights and we don't know what to do with them? Then I don't think any Palestinian will accept any solution that doesn't fulfill the necessities of being recognized as a nation and having his own self-determination. But I am with any process which might give us a hope of starting a real and sincere peace process. If it will come through the American-Palestinian dialogue, we would like to see its signs now. Otherwise, I think they are pushing the leadership of the PLO into the wall, and it might be very, very critical for them to continue asking their people to continue what is called now the attitudes of moderation, of being moderates and trying to be more realistic in dealing with the Palestinian-Israeli struggle. Okay.
Given the unattractiveness of this proposal for the Palestinians, what do you suppose is motivating the United States in pressing it so hard? What is the underlying hope that the U.S. administration has? Do they want the PLO to do?
Well, first of all, this question should be given to the American administration. But it seems that everybody is now using the double tongue talking, which is at first Shamir all the time was accusing Arafat of speaking in two terms, one for the American and Western society and one for the Palestinians and the Arabs. And now it seems that everybody is adopting this system. Shamir, when he speaks abroad, he speaks about his sincerity about starting a peace initiative, and people will be surprised how much Israel will go for peace. And when he comes back in the Likud Center, he will say no 1 inch, and he will adopt 4 conditions from Sharon Levy, etc. And the Americans, when they meet the Palestinians, they would say, well, now we are against the Palestinian state, but if it comes out of negotiations, we won't oppose it. And when they come to the Israelis, they will say also, we are against the Palestinian state, and you should start negotiating, and we are backing completely your proposal for election and the other points of the proposal. So actually, I think the Americans will be capable of being a major factor in solving the Israeli and Palestinian struggle if they understand not only the Israeli sides and its needs and its public opinion, but also the Palestinian side, its needs and its public opinion. The Americans are dealing with the Palestinians as if they are a herd of goats led by a single man, who's Arafat, and this is not true. Actually, who doesn't know the complications inside the Palestinians, how the public opinion or the political spectrum of the Palestinians will, even from the realistic point of view, will commit a lot of mistakes. The Palestinians have different political fractions and has different commitments, and actually they are very sensitive to the change in the policies and the struggle here and there. And still we have a very huge moderate majority. but yet extremism are coming from here and there. And if the situation will continue like that, there is a real danger that extremism might start having good roots in the Palestinian community. Everybody is working against that and trying to adopt the moderate positions of the PLO and adopt the moderate positions of the Intifada itself. But yet, the Americans, if I'm going to advise them, don't try to push the leadership of the PLO so hard, because they might lose their credibility. And yet, you might lose the chance of being able to control the process itself or to be a good mediator in order to start a peace initiative. So as far as you think, when they accepted the position of Shamir, even after he accepted the 4 conditions of Sharon, when they accepted that, they took into consideration the complications inside the Israelis' public opinion and especially inside the right bloc in Israel. Now they should look more thoroughly into what's going on the Palestinian side. Otherwise, they might be losing a good opportunity of helping in bringing a realistic peace in the area.
If the election proposal is rejected or sabotaged from within the Israeli government, or because the conditions are not acceptable to the Palestinian leadership, can the Intifada continue? How long can it continue? What will the future of the Intifada look like 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road? Can it be sustained, etc.?
As an observer also, I can see that the Palestinians has no choice except to continue with the Intifada until a political solution becomes a reality. And from my relations with the people, I could see that even the people who are living under very tough conditions and suffering a lot from the new conditions they are living now are persistent of continuing the Intifada. And therefore, I don't see the Intifada linked with the election proposals. Yet, I can see that more moderation is acceptable in the Palestinian side if there are peace initiatives and if there are talks and negotiations. And at the moment, any hope of peace process will stop. It's possible that the Intifada will go to more extreme points of view, and extremists might start to be more or to be stronger in their effect inside the Palestinian people. But yet, pushing the Palestinians into a hopeless case is the most dangerous action that could be taken by any side at this moment. Because even with, they don't have the Phantom, they don't have the sophisticated weapons, but they have the determination. And actually they are willing to continue. You can see that the Palestinians now are adopting the Intifada as a style of living. And they are restructuring their community in order to continue living under such a style. And this will give the Intifada, in my opinion, a very good opportunity to survive for long times. And now I'm speaking about years, I'm not speaking about months. And nobody can examine the Intifada and test its effectiveness by the number of casualties here and there, because the Intifada is not like that. And anyone who looks to the Intifada in these terms is committing a big mistake. The Intifada is a long list of actions and new realities being created inside the occupied territories. It is a struggle of dependence and control. And yet the Palestinians are managing to achieve a lot in terms of independence and controlling their own societies. And whenever the Israeli authority are trying to stop this process, which is a natural process, the clashes are there and the violence erupts. That's how I describe the idea. Palestinians now, as I see, are not initiating violence. But whenever the Israelis are trying to attack their achievements, they are defending it. And therefore, you could see now most of the incidents either soldiers entering isolated villages to arrest people or to chase people, and then clashes will erupt, or tax collectors are raiding places and then clashes will erupt, or civil administration are trying to restructure itself and intervene in the social activities in the occupied territories, and also violence will erupt again and clashes will erupt again. So actually, I won't say that the Palestinians, as I see, are convinced with the achievements they are doing, but they are willing to defend these achievements. So I see that the Palestinians have adopted this as a style of life. They are living the Intifada, and that's how I see the opening of the schools. Now, there is no contradiction between opening the schools and the Intifada. If people are willing to see the Intifada as a style of life, then schools should be opened. And I don't believe any idea which is now all the time given by the Israelis that the Intifada is dying. No, actually what I see in front of my eyes is the Intifada entering into a stage to be a style of life for the Palestinians. They are living it now. And Palestinians are not so worried about the excitement in the Intifada, especially at the beginning of the Intifada. A lot of reporters, a lot of excitement. Moreover, I see the Palestinians now are more concerned about the physical achievements of the Intifada and being capable of processing their normal life with the minimum casualties, but yet with the Intifada.
Could you speak for a moment about the effect on your teaching at Bir Zeit? Has it continued? What is the effect on your research? Have you been able to carry on your academic activities despite the official repression of education here in the West Bank?
Well, first of all, you know that Bir Zeit University have been closed since the beginning of the Intifada. So officially we are not working. Yet we managed to go on with our research, but with a lot of difficulties. You know, the institution is closed, we can't reach the campus, it is a closed military zone. And whenever you travel from Bethlehem to Ramallah or to Bir Zeit, you are risking your life because you might see a checkpoint and then you might there be searched and you might be arrested, and you know, you are taking, by fiddling around in the occupied territories these days, you are risking a lot. And yet, even if you need something to complete your research, if it, in normal cases, if it takes a week to be solved, here it will take 2 or 3 months to be solved. And finally, I have had another problem, that I was arrested for 18 days. And by that, they prevented me from going to continue my research. And then I was issued a green identity card, which is this green identity card. And by the green identity card, you are not allowed to enter any Israeli territories. And this means that I can't leave Bethlehem to reach Ramallah, because there is no way to reach it without entering Jerusalem. And Jerusalem, from their point of view, is considered Israeli territories, even the eastern part of Jerusalem. So I'm not capable of reaching the place where I do my research. I'm not sure if doing a research is legal or illegal. If I am caught, I might be punished. Actually, I phoned my lawyer yesterday and asked her to investigate, is doing a research considered an illegal activity or not. I'm still waiting for a reply from her. And by issuing me this card, I have the problem of being confined to Bethlehem area. I can't travel elsewhere. And this will complicate a lot my research activities. And I'm not sure how this will be solved. Through a lawyer, I'm asking now for a permission to go through Jerusalem, not to enter or to fiddle around, but to go through one street. And I haven't got any answer yet. I'm waiting for my lawyer to say if this is possible or not. I'm not optimistic about that. And it is a terrible situation. And I imagine even if the universities are open tomorrow, there is a lot of complications, and I can name you some of them. First of all, about 30% of the students of Bir Zeit University are from Gaza Strip, and nobody can leave Gaza Strip. And assume Bir Zeit University is open tomorrow. So we are losing at least 30% of our students. Secondly, look how difficult is it to go from Bethlehem or Hebron area and reach Bir Zeit University. And let's estimate how many students from Bir Zeit University could have a green identity card. And then the people from Nablus or Tol Karim or Jenin. Actually, opening the universities now is still a problem for us because they have created a situation in which traveling even to few kilometers will be considered a great problem for the people. And hopefully, the universities on the occupied territories will unify their position and adopt a new system of education, which should be based on regional education, so that Bethlehem University might take the role in educating people who lives in Bethlehem Hebron area, while Bir Zeit University could take the role in the middle of the occupied territories, and Al-Najah could cover the north area. And I have submitted a proposal about changing the style of university education to sort of adapt the situation of the Intifada, adapt to the situation of the Intifada. Otherwise, I can't see, even if they were ordered open tomorrow, I can't see how our universities are going to function.
Can you tell us what charges did they tell you or did they give you? Why were you arrested?
Actually, I have been arrested for 18 days. I haven't been interrogated. Nobody have told me why I was arrested, and nobody have told me why I was released. I was kept for these 18 days. And for my surprise, after that, I was given a green identity card. Now, I will suppose that I was arrested for this reason exactly. You know, they arrested me so that I will fulfill the requirements of having a green identity card. But actually, I don't know. I wish that some of them at least told me that you were arrested for this reason or that reason. But nobody told me that. I was kept in a very miserable conditions for 18 days. I saw a lot there, but yet I was released and I didn't know why.
What are the usual circumstances surrounding receiving a green card? Why was it unusual for you to get one after an 18-day detention?
Well, actually, I don't think there is any stated requirements. And it's difficult for them to issue you a green identity card without being imprisoned. And I don't know the criteria, but I was astonished because it wasn't usual for 18 days of imprisonment to get a green identity card, because it's very common. Anyone could be picked from the street, and then he can stay in the prison for 18 days and released without interrogation, without anything. And it happens, you know, they are adopting a system called the bingo. And in the bingo, any soldier in the street can stop anyone and check for his identity card. And all of them have long lists of identity card numbers. And whenever your identity card number matches the identity card number of any of these numbers in the list, he will say bingo, which means that you are a guy who is wanted. And then you will be picked up and put in jail for a few days. It can go up to 18 days, and then you will be released. And as soon as you are released, whenever you meet another soldier, you will be another bingo, and then you will be arrested again. And adopting this system means that thousands of people have been under arrestment for 18 days, at least. And if they are going to issue all of these green identity cards, the number will be incredible. You know, they'll be issuing green identity cards for almost everybody. And therefore, Why that? Give everybody green identity cards and that's it. Well, I'm not so angry about giving me a green identity cards because a green card is a requirement for citizenship. I have got the green card now for my Palestinian citizenship, first of all. Secondly, I think that any action taken by the authority to encourage the splitting between the occupied territories and the Israeli territories is welcomed. And that's how I see what they are doing in Gaza now. Forbidding people from leaving Gaza is a good requirement for splitting or for dismatching, and therefore it is a good requirement for independence. In order to get independence, first of all, you should dismatch from the Jordanians, which have been done, and secondly, you should be separated from the Israelis, and this is being slowly done. And yet, it might affect my personal life, but in the general point of view, I like it. I like these measures taken by the Israelis because we will be facing a stage in which we should decide. Now, we should build our own economy. We should start living by our own. This is independence. And yet, they are, by these measures, encouraging these attitudes, which is good, I think.
In the dialogue, generally speaking, and what results do you expect or do you hope for?
First of all, I distinguish between two kinds of dialogues. A dialogue on the personal level and dialoguing with officials. Now, speaking with officials, I won't call it dialoguing, I would say it sort of negotiating with them. Now, this is something I'm not interested in speaking about. But yet, if you speak about dialoguing between on personal level, it's something that I encourage actually, and I have positive attitudes toward that. Especially, first of all, the two sides, the two nations who are living side by side each other, few meters away from each other, at least should communicate, should know each other. A big deal of the struggle among the Palestinians is built on not knowing each other and therefore being afraid of each other. Since the beginning of the Intifada, I saw that the Palestinians were so active in trying to deliver the peaceful message of the Intifada to the Israelis. I won't claim that this will be so easy because the Intifada have some aspects of violence. And how are you throwing a stone on somebody and trying to convince him that this is a peaceful message? This wasn't actually for the Palestinians involved in the dialogue, wasn't that easy. But yet, I think many of the Israelis living there next door to the Palestinians are very poorly informed about the Palestinians living under the occupation. And they don't know exactly what is occupation. Maybe the people who lived under the British mandate knows a bit about the occupation, but especially the younger generation doesn't know anything about occupation, except for playing the role of the oppressor, not the oppressed. And therefore, the Israeli society has adopted very restricted stereotypes about the Palestinians. And these stereotypes allowed the Israelis on the human level to give themselves the permission of oppressing the Palestinians and dealing with them not as human beings, but as a gang of terrorists or hostile people. And therefore, somebody at some point should try to make the Israelis and the Palestinians on the personal level knows each other much better than the stereotypes they have developed among each other. Even on the Palestinian side, an Israeli was stereotyped as a Zionist, and a Zionist for a Palestinian, I'm speaking about the stereotype, is a gangster, is not a human being. And therefore, also this is part of the misunderstanding that was there. And I don't think either this stereotype or the other one will help any of the both sides of the struggle. It will help the Palestinians to be more fantasy and less realistic, and it will help the Israelis to be more or developing more fascist attitudes towards the Palestinians. And the continuation of such a struggle with a lot of hateness inside the hearts of the people is something that everybody will be afraid of. Now, first of all, even if you want to fight the other nation, you should know them pretty well. Without knowing them, there is no use of fighting them. So either to fight them or to make peace with them, at least you should communicate and know them. And I think this is a good strategy for everybody, for the Israelis or for the Palestinians. Even the Israeli who wants to fight against the Palestinians, he should know them as they are, not as they were stereotyped to him by his propaganda. And the same applies on the Palestinian. Because at this moment, it's easier to fight or to make peace with somebody you know. It's very difficult either to fight or to make peace with somebody you don't know. So I think this is a good introduction to how necessary is the dialogue between the two nations on personal level. And yet, among the Israelis, I can see still a marginal part of the population, but an active part of the population, who are well aware of the complications of the occupation and who are well aware of the bad effects of the occupation on the Israeli society. And therefore, they are fighting against the occupation. At this moment, you would see that the Intifada is fighting against the occupation, and yet part of the Israelis are fighting against the occupation. And I think activities coordinating between the two sides might lead to a better understanding and might lead to a quicker end of the occupation itself. And this was part of the dialogue, to speak with the people who really appreciate how bad the occupation, not only on the Palestinians, but also on the Israeli side. And therefore, whenever there is a common ground from which you can go, it's easier to adopt a policy or a tactic which suits both sides. And this is what the peace, the people who are working for a peaceful initiative is trying to find. Is there is a possibility that the two nations will benefit out of a peaceful process? This is the main question. Now, the main problem in front of this sort of a dialogue, which was going on the occupied territory since the beginning of the Intifada, and it's now going on a very wide scale, the main problem is that the peace camp in Israel is getting more and more marginal, and yet the public opinion in Israel is shifting more towards the right. And I saw in the last months that there have been a good effort done by the Palestinians to dialogue not only with the people who are considered from the peace camp in Israel, but they are trying now to preach the non-converted, the people who are more to the center and the right, and also on a personal level. And I think this might be a very fruitful process for both sides, because actually, at least being capable of sitting together and speaking together on personal level and on equal standards is something by itself. And up to now, my impression is that the Israelis, the average Israeli, is not willing to sit and dialogue with the Palestinian. He's afraid of changing his stereotype about the Palestinian, because it will be more difficult for him to oppress him if he will meet him and know that all the stereotypes he have arranged in his mind about the Palestinian being a terrorist, a gangster, etc., and not being a human being. He doesn't want to know that the Palestinian is living in a home with a family and a wife and practicing a human life and building civilization. He wants to avoid this picture about the Palestinian, and he all the time wants to create in his mind a single picture, a terrorist attacking somebody or children or child killer or whatsoever. And this is not true, because when we want to speak about the crimes done against each other from both sides, it's a long list of things, and both sides have done a lot of terrible things to each other. And therefore, we shouldn't be restricted to the ideas and stereotypes of the past. We should start recognizing each other quite well. And I think at this moment, if it is possible to affect the Israeli government through the public opinion, peace might have a chance. Until then, I still suspect that somebody from abroad will be capable of bringing peace to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. But yet I have the impression from many Israelis whom I met, and many of them are considered right-wingers, I have the impression that a lot of them is speaking about the Palestinian state as an inevitable product of the process going here. But they are not willing to admit it, because a lot of them think that this is pretty dangerous to their own existence. And yet a lot of work should be done to convince them that this is not true, that there is still a solution by which both nations can benefit, and not only one side on the sake of the other side, or on the interest of the other side. So I can't evaluate actually, but I see it as a promising process going on here, and I hope to see it on a larger scale, especially involving the average Palestinian and the average Israeli, not only involving the academicians or the more elite classes or whatsoever. I want to see a real dialogue, because the more you see the people, the more you understand their problems, and in many occasions you can at one moment say, okay, assume let me say I am a Palestinian, but at one occasion I might say, assume I am an Israeli walking in my car, and then somebody throws stone on me, what will I think? And let me say, if an Israeli will start thinking, assume I am Palestinian and somebody is oppressing me for 22 years, killing me, arresting me, demolishing my home, what I'm going to do. Now, if in some points of view, if at some moment somebody starts talking like that, or at least thinking like that, I think we would have achieved a lot on the public level, not on the political or the authority levels, but on the public level, which is pretty essential, because both nations are very active nations. Palestinians are so active socially, politically, and the Israelis are also so active socially and politically. And convincing the public opinion on both sides will have immediate reflection on the policies of the two leaders of the two nations. And that's why I see it's important to continue the dialogue, but yet it's important to be restricted on the personal level, and in terms of the official level, we have only a single representative. Any Israeli official, if he wants to speak with the Palestinians, he only have a single address: Tunisia, the leadership of the PLO. He have no other alternative.
Questions? Could I ask you a question about what you envision the future Palestinian state to be like in terms of its economy, foreign relations? Is that something you would like to speak about for a moment?
Yes, but I'm not a professional economist, so I can't really estimate what sort of economy is this state going to be built on whatsoever. But yet, I have a big hope in my people. My people now reminds me with the Israelis in the middle of the 50s. They were poor people living in camps, but they were full of determination and goodwill to build a state. The Palestinians now are in the same psychological state. They have the will of the fighter. They are very rich in human resources. I admit our state won't be more than 17% of the total land of the mandate Palestine. And in terms of local resources, it's not very rich. But yet we have the human resources, and yet we have the spirit of the fighter. And that's what I depend on in building the state. I believe this state should have good relations. First of all, should be a democratic state. And I stick to the declarations of Algiers, that it won't be only a state, it will be a democratic state based on a parliament system with multi-party system. And anyone who doesn't want to apply that, I'll be for the first one to fight against him, because this is the kind of state we are seeking. Secondly, I think we have the goodwill of the people, we have the determination, and we have the human resources. And I know we will be facing a lot of difficulties, but yet this kind of people is capable of dealing with these difficulties. And I'm so optimistic about the future. And I feel that this state should have good relations with all its neighbors and should build normal relations with all its neighbors. But this shouldn't be done unless the Palestinians have their legitimate rights. Self-determination and right of return should be solved also. And after that, I think the Palestinians are willing to deliver their hands in a very sincere way, not only to the Arabs around them, but also to the Israelis, and willing to build good and natural relations with them.
Would you speak for a moment about Beit Sahur, about why Beit Sahur has taken such a major role in the Intifada, and what is unique about the community?
Well, as a guy living in Beit Sahur and who have been living in Beit Sahur all the Intifada, first of all, I would say Beit Sahur couldn't be described as the more violent place in the occupied territory. It might be the less violent place in the but yet it is the subject of hard harassment by the authorities all over. And I think that's because the people of Beit Sahur, when they were joining the Intifada, they joined the Intifada stressing the non-violent aspects of the Intifada. And this is what seems to bother the occupation authorities. Now, people here tried to reorganize themselves, restructure the society in order to make the losses as minimum as possible. They sort of started the alternative education, and they didn't give up by the closure of the schools. They built up their own schools. They went to the land again, and they built the idea of home economy, and they were working towards self-sufficiency. And everybody in Beit Sahur was working for that. Not only because of the commitment to the Intifada, but also because of the commitment to his family. We are living under very hard conditions. And unless you take precautions, unless you reorganize your style of life, you won't be capable of surviving. And Beit Sahur people, especially the people who should pay taxes, are refusing to pay taxes. And this is, as I said before, they think that there will be no taxation without representation. It's illegal to pay taxes to an occupying authority. And in spite of all the measures taken by the authorities against them, it seems that they are still persistent and not willing to pay taxes. Many of them has lost a lot. Many of them, all of their properties were confiscated, cars and furniture, and many of them were put in prison. But yet I see them determined to back their political position. We are willing to pay taxes only to our elected government, not to an occupation government. And this is up to them. They think this is the right way, and they are sticking to that. And Beit Sahur is also have a very specific aspects. You know, Beit Sahur is most of the residents of Beit Sahur are a middle class type, and 80% of them are Christians, and they are entrepreneurs. You know, they like to develop themselves. They are not rich. They are not traditional, and Beit Sahur have been very rich in social clubs and institutions, and people are so related to each other, and they are close relatives to each other. And nobody is left alone. Everybody is caring about everybody. And it seems that the authorities are not liking such a style of life. Well, this is our style of life. We have been living like that since ages and ages. And we can return to our history in 1,000 years living here in this place. Our families goes back to 1,000 years. And all the time we have lived like that. And nobody can cut down our unity. Nobody can destroy our unity. Either if we are suffering from the Jordanians or the Israelis or anybody else, we are united and we care about each other. I'm speaking on the human level. In this human level, the people of Beit Sahur are unique. And that's why all the time the authorities are trying to take more harsh measures against Beit Sahur. And all over, most of the arrestments in Beit Sahur is among elderly people, not only young people. And most of them are socially active people, not only in the Intifada, but even before the Intifada, and are known as moderates and people of peace. And they are not known by any means as people who initiate either violence or whatsoever from activities. But this contradiction is amazing, because at one point they claim that they want peace and they want to develop a moderate leadership inside the occupied territories, and on the other hand they are arresting such a people, and they are trying to oppress this kind of activities, which is non-violent, moderate activities, and then they claim that this is their aim. And you should accept, when I spoke in the beginning, you should accept that we don't trust them. They are not trustful. We know that they are tricky enough, and they are not showing their real intentions. So that's Beit Sahur, and that's how it develops. But yet, the authorities are all the time taking more and more harsh measures for the Beit Sahur people without committing any crime. Cooperation is not a crime. Caring about each other is not a crime. They don't like us to be like that. Well, this is their problem. We are like that. It's not ours. Thanks.
Would you mind talking to us, telling us what happened to you and your family in the last few days?
Yeah, 2 days ago, would you like me to...
We need the light.
2 days ago, I was sitting with my father, who's 67 years old, and a cousin of mine, who was about 42, on a small balcony on my father's home. And we were discussing the several issues and having a family conversation with each other. And some people were standing in front of the bakery, which is just 30 meters from the balcony we were sitting in. And accidentally, we saw a lot of soldiers screaming and shooting and running. And all the people standing in front of the bakery, including a small kid of 13 years old, who I haven't seen him before actually, I didn't know him, started running away, frightened from the soldiers who were shooting and running and screaming. And this kid came for a shelter on our balcony. But the soldiers started chasing him. And they entered the balcony, and one of the soldiers started beating the kid. So I just stood there and told the soldier, well, you have the full right to arrest him according to the law, but yet you don't have the right to beat him. And I couldn't finish my sentence, actually. He started beating me, starting smashing my head towards the wall, and kicking me with his hands and legs and his weapon. And within few seconds, other 5 soldiers entered the balcony, and they started beating me. I was dropping on the floor. They beating me with a chair, with a small coffee table. And all the time, the child was so afraid and terrified, and he was holding my hand as if he was holding the hand of his father. And they tried to pull him out of me, but he was so sticking to me so that they couldn't. And all the time they were beating me. My father tried to protest, but they started beating him and pushed him inside the home. And they started beating my cousin. Even my cousin didn't intervene. He didn't even ask them to stop beating me, but yet they started beating him. And when my wife came, trying to ask why are you doing that to him, one of the soldiers slapped her hardly on the face. And finally, after about 7 minutes or so, they managed to get the kid after beating us all, and they took him. And in the bus there, they started beating him the hell. He was released the second day, and I saw his face. It was terrible. I couldn't identify his face. You know, both of his eyes was not seen because he have been beaten all the time on his face and head. And I made a complaint in the military governor office afterwards, and I made a complaint in the police station. And even in the police station, the people there were trying to push me away and not to accept my complaint. They made me wait for more than 4 hours in order to issue a small complaint. And I have a lawyer who's following this case, and I want to see, are they going to be punished? What sort of measures are going to be taken against them? I'm not optimistic about that because I heard about many, many cases in which nothing was done with the soldiers. And I don't think a soldier should have a permission to beat and kill. I don't think this is human. And being a soldier doesn't mean that you actually have the bodies of the people around you and you can do whatever you want with them. But yet that's what's going on here. Now, this happens every day. It's not a unique position. It's the first time I have been beaten. And yet I hope that God will give me the strength to forget and forgive.